Yo, what's up guys? Nandra here, and welcome to yet another video. Now for this video, I'm going to be talking and unveiling my dirt list. Now I believe I did share this up a little bit, however, for those who might not have seen it, this is what I'm running with as far as dirt goes at the moment. Dirt is an archetype that I want to play around with quite a bit, especially now that I have some more free time. So this is the deck list. I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about each thing individually. 3 Witch's Cauldron. Witch's Cauldron is nice because it's a one mana card, and 1 mana is very easy in fitting into your curve, especially later in the game. Also, it's essentially an insight, but for dirt. Now, as you might recall, in previous dirt decks, I was running triple insight just because I believe that having an artificially smaller deck is pretty key to consistency. 3 Dwarf Alchemist. Dwarf Alchemist again is pretty core. It's a 2-drop that works for your deck. It gives you an earth. It gives you +1 by giving you an earth essence. It's pretty good. The only thing that sucks about it is that it does not give you full stats on evolve. However, that's whatever, and it's just something they just kind of have to deal with. However, it's still a very powerful effect, and I'm really glad that Dirt has this card. Triple Levi. Levi is pretty much going to be a 3-of in any single rune deck you play. Period. Probably until the end of time, just because he's just a mage that's as old as Dirt. JK. He's actually really good just because he gives you he busts up boards, and he also has additional utility, and that the 1 mana spell that you get from the Crimson Sorcery, you can use that to go face. You can use that to break up a board. You can also go ahead and set up very high burn damage from out of nowhere that your opponent is not expecting. Like, for example, I have games where I hold the Crimson Sorcery like most of the game, and I just drop all of my burn spells at once. My opponent eats like 9 to 12 damage, and she's like, what the fuck, where did that come from? But I've had it in my hand all game. They just kind of forgot about it, because in Shadowverse in particular, when you just online CCGs as a whole, when you don't have access to looking at the entire graveyard all at once, people kind of forget what things you have in your hand, because people kind of have like short-term memory. 1 Magic Illusionist. Alright, I'm only running 3 Magic Illusionists just because he eats up a lot of sigils, and he's only like situational useful. Like, for example, I like him a lot versus Z-Shift just because the only way that they can get rid of him correctly is with Kaleido Glow, and that's pretty good. I actually like that. 2 Teachings of the Creation. I like you might be wondering why teachings when you already have Witch's Cauldron. I'm a guy that likes card draw. Card draw is pretty important just because it makes your deck more redundant, and redundancy is good. It's also a sigil, and that's nice because as you'll see, I don't have that many sigils in this deck. I have 3, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, I have exactly 10 sigils, and I have a lot of sigil related effects. I have a few. Anyway, but yeah, so that's why I'm running it. Oh, I lied, by the way. It's not actually 10. I have 15. Sorry, 15. Triple Goblin Mage. Again, this is one of those things that people are like, Dan's game, why the fuck are you running Goblin Mage? That makes no sense, except that, it makes a lot of sense. You can use the Goblin Mage to most likely search to have. Okay, so I play exactly 7 2-drops. So there is about 42% chance that you get a Levi from each and every Goblin Mage you play. And it's really nice. It's really nice when you're on the draw, because that way you can have an almost assured Levi to bust up their board state. And that's really nice because you get to because again you get that extra redundancy. So let's go ahead and pause here. So you will notice that again I have the triple Goblin Mage, I have the double Teachings, and I have the triple, and I have the triple Witch's Cauldron. That's already 8 cards in my deck they're just straight up cantrip sets. So essentially, right now I have a 32 card deck. That means that my deck is gonna be pretty consistent in what I want it to do each and every game. Triple Grimnir, just because you win with this deck in one of 2 ways. You either I'm sorry, you win with the second one of 3 ways. And Grimnir is just really cool as one of the few board clears you have in this deck. He also pushes space damage as well, and if need be, he can be a ward. He can be a ward in a pinch. Just standard Grimnir things. It's not really anything special. 2 Petrification. You run 2 Petrification just because Petrification is sort of your catch-all card. It's cheaper than say Dance of Death, and also hits more things at once. Like for example, you can hit Bahamut, you can hit Mordecai, you can hit Beauty and the Beast, you can hit Hero of Antiquity, you can hit all the all the really annoying problem creatures in the game that threaten to end the game, barring Aegis. And that's really nice, especially because it's both a polymorph and just a straight up banish when you need it to be too, and it's just really flexible in how it works. Double Gingerbread House. So Gingerbread House is pretty cool. I really like that we got this card this set. It's more healing, which is nice, because one thing that people forget about Dirt is that Dirt actually can heal quite a bit. I've had, like, you run triple Veteran Alchemist usually, and that was already 15 healing from 3 cards, but now you also run Gingerbread House. You have the ability to, if the game goes on long enough, to heal for 19. 19 is not a small number. It's also Sigil, and that's nice, because, you know, extra Sigil is pretty nice. But yeah, it's a very nice card. Double Veteran Alchemist. So the number of Veteran Alchemists can change. It can be 3, it can be 2. I usually just go with 2, just because most times I usually only need the heal for 5 once. 3 Halo Golem. Halo Golem is really nice. Halo Golem is space damage. It's essentially another copy of Levi they can use on 4. However, Halo Golem is nice because Halo Golem can work going first, whereas Levi cannot. Additionally, it is one of your win cons in the deck, in which you will go ahead and stack the Crimson Sorceries, and then I've had games where I just go on 9 mana. On 9 mana, or from 6 to 9 mana, I just go Halo Golem, Crimson Sorc, 9 damage, or Halo Golem, Crimson Sorc, 9 damage. Alright, so I'm gonna ignore this card for a second, and I'm gonna go ahead and talk about, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about Master Mage Levi. Master Mage Levi is a really cool card. Again, we also got this expansion, so this is gonna be a Wonderland Dreams deck. Master Levi is very flexible. He's one of the few cards. He's one of the few good Dirt cards that does not care if you have an Earthright or if you do not have an Earthright. This is important because Dirt as a whole is a parasitic mechanic. Now what that means is that you rely on a host, in this case your sigils, in order for you to do what you're intended to do. Now Levi kind of ignores that. Levi has a good on his own effect. However, obviously you're gonna want to get the Earthright effect whenever you can, just because the deal 3 damage to all enemies is nice, just because it's basically a Grimnir for 6. Not Grimnir for 6. It's basically a one-sided Demonic Storm for 6. And that's just really cool. 2 Juno's Secret Laboratory. I only play 2 Junos just because most times I only need to cast 1 Junos in order to win. Because usually when it comes down, I put my opponent in a very awkward spot, because they can't develop a board, because if they develop a board, they're going to be developing it into Professor. If Professor comes down, they probably just lose. Additionally, Juno's Secret Laboratory is a win con in and of itself, in the sense that for 7 mana and a sigil, you get 12/12 worth of stats, and they're all wards, so your opponent has to interact with each and every one of them. And your opponent has to interact with each and every one of them over the course of 3 turns. That's really nice, because getting a quote unquote free 3/3 ward each turn is a pretty good feeling, because it means that you can develop, and you've essentially gained free mana. That's really important. And now we're gonna go ahead and talk about Professor. Honestly, I've said this in several videos for several months now. The Professor of Taboos is fucking god. Like, he's just such an insane tempo swing card. Like, god, it's just so nice. Like, there's so much that I could say about Taboos, just because he's such a great card. Like, his effect is simple and to the point, but the magnitude and the relevance of his ability cannot be understated. Being able to essentially steal your opponent's tempo and punish them for playing creatures is a pretty great fucking feeling. And on top of that, with Professor, while he's in play, your opponent has to kill him. He's one of the best pseudo wards in the game, just because if your opponent tries to ignore him and you play more sigils, you're just gonna keep making more zombies, and you're just gonna keep blowing up their board. So every time he comes down, you just get a lot of breathing room, because your opponent is going to have to waste a lot of resources to deal with him. Whether that be an Evo, a premium removal spell, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the point is that when he comes down, you just get such massive tempo swings from him that's usually enough to just outright win you a game. Like, I know in the past a lot of people have been like, oh, Dirt doesn't have a solid win condition. Your win condition is Taboos. Like, that man is a god. Anyway, I digress. And now for this card, Illusionist. Now, Illusionist is one of the cards I was actually the most excited for this expansion, just because her effect is very, very cool, and it's very, very reminiscent to a card from Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, sorry, just several cards from Yu-Gi-Oh! You can kind of look at her as let's say, a Call of the Haunted type effect, in which you get to resurrect, and which you get to temporarily resurrect a card that died previously and get to use it again. However, something that people don't touch on is that Illusionist lets you keep the abilities of whatever you bring back. So, for example, if you bring back Professor, he's gonna get his end of turn effect, and he's gonna get his whenever a creature is destroyed effect, and that's very, very good. If you were to bring back something like, say, a Zeus, yeah, that Zeus is going to be able to go face, and he's going to be a 10 HP ward. That's pretty fucking crazy. And essentially, in this deck with Illusionist, I only want to hit Professor of Taboos. However, in a pinch, if I haven't played Professor or Master Mage Levi yet, there's a chance that I can pull out a ward. That I can pull out a ward from the Guardian Golem. But it's already hard enough for your opponent to deal with 3 copies of Taboos, or hell, even just 1 Taboo is difficult for your opponent to deal with most times. How the fuck do they deal with a potential 4 to 5 each turn? That is insane. Anyway, we're gonna go to the games now. So, I'm actually really sad, because the other day I have a lot of wins. Sorry about that. The other day I played versus Sword, and this Sword game was funny as fuck, just because Taboos in both games just single-handedly just like bodied my opponent. Just, god, it felt so nice. And however, I ended up accidentally playing over those games just because I was in a hurry and I was doing my dailies, and that made me kind of sad. So I was really glad that my first games for these videos were actually versus Sword. You're gonna see how Taboos just kind of comes into play and just like destroys my opponent, just straight up just annihilates him. Alright, so I'm going second. So I already have a 2-drop and a 4-drop in my hand. Yes, and if you're going second, you consider Levi as a 4-drop most times. If you have the hand to support that. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep Levi. I'm gonna go ahead and keep Dwarf Alchemist. I also get a 1-drop and the Witch's Cauldron, so this is nice. My opponent plays that Unica here, so now I already know. Well, I mean, I already had a feel. I already had a good feeling, but he's most likely neutral sword. He's most likely neutral token sword. He plays with the Goblin Leader. The Goblin Leader confirms my suspicions. The Goblin Leader is very, very annoying right now, just because if you're on the draw and they play Goblin Leader and they also clear off your 2-drop. Well, suddenly that Goblin Leader is starting to make 2 plus tokens, and if they play Alice, you're out of the game. So, because that is the case, even though it hurts my soul to do this, I'm going to cast Petrification on the Goblin Leader, just because that Goblin Leader cannot be allowed to stay alive. Casting the Petrification here isn't even that bad either, just because with the Witch's Cauldron in play, I'm gonna get to draw a card. So I draw my second Taboos here. This is nice because I already know exactly what I'm doing on 4. I'm most likely going to be playing Levi plus Earth Essence, Eva the Levi, Crimson Sorcery his board most likely. The next turn on 5 I can go Halo Goal and maybe clear something up. If I draw a second sigil either during next turn or the turn after that, I'm in a very, very good spot because suddenly I can go Taboos, Evo, and then get the nightmare situation for my opponent where he's suddenly staring down 7 damage, and that's already blown up his creatures, and he's going to need to give me more Evos. He plays second Goblin Leader here. This is fine. I don't care about that, because his hand's mostly trash. What I do, however, care about is that I can only clear off at max 2 creatures this turn. As a result, if he has Rabbit Ear Attendant next turn, I'm going to be in trouble. If he has Alice in Wonderland, I'm going to be in trouble. However, if he does have the Alice, it'll most likely be a top deck, just because if he was going to play the Alice, he was going to play it last turn. However, the same cannot be said for the Rabbit Ear Attendant, just because the Rabbit Ear Attendant, you draw additional cards based off the number of neutrals in play. So again, I'm gonna go Earth Essence, Eva the Levi, and I'm definitely clearing the Goblin Leader, and I'm gonna now here I have to decide what I want to do. I can hold onto the Crimson Sorcery and try to get greedy on my opponent and use that in conjunction with the Halo Golem to get a better target, or I can use it now on a 1/2. I'm relatively healthy, and I have a 3 HP ward on the board because he's gonna want to kill this Levi, just because if he doesn't kill the Levi, that can keep killing the remainder of his board. So here I decide to hold it. Again, I'm not under any real pressure just yet. And here, my opponent plays Kai'Sa. Him playing the Kai'Sa into the carrot is very, very low tempo. Sure, he has a full board now, but I don't give a fuck about that. I really don't. Just because he hasn't played Alice yet, so I can more or less ignore the goblins and focus on the rest of his board. I do draw a sigil. Drawing the sigil here is very, very, very good because my hand was looking kind of anemic as far as sigils go. So I'm gonna go ahead and red out Ritual the Kai'Sa. I'm going to most likely trade into a goblin, and I'm gonna go ahead and ping off the carrot with my Crimson Sorcery. This is nice just because I get to stretch the additional value. I get to stretch additional value for my Levi. My Levi has already gotten me a +3, and it's starting to get me even more pluses. From the way my opponent has been playing thus far, and him deciding to save an Evo, he's probably most likely going to go face this turn. If he goes face this turn, he loses because I have Master Mage Levi in my hand. Master Mage, one thing that I should be very, very wary of when you play versus Dirt is that Dirt has one of the strongest turn 6s in the game, because they have 3 different AoEs that are all lined up on that mana curve. You have Master Mage Levi for 3 AoE altogether. You have Calamitous Curse, which is 5 AoE, and also banishes whatever it hits. And then you also have Professor of Taboos, who he wins the game. So my opponent needs to be very, very careful with this turn. He should not go face. He should be trying to make trades. Just so that way, if he makes the trades and then I AoE him, then it's like less bad for him. Just because if you go face and I play an AoE, especially in this case, Master Mage Levi, then suddenly I have 2 mid-game threats for to deal with. This Levi that's been on the board since like turn 4 is gonna be threatening to live yet another turn, because you're most likely going to clear Master Mage Levi. Just because if you don't and I evo it into you, that's 6 damage. And yeah, my opponent has more or less just written himself into a corner. He goes face, he doesn't evo because he's greedy. The reason why you would evo anything at all there is because Master Mage Levi does exactly 3 damage. If you evo anything, then you get to do 2 extra damage, and I'm either going to have to sacrifice 4 damage, or I'm going to have to give you an evo. Me without evos is a lot better for you, because he's Sword. He's the class that has the most rush and or Stormfallers in the game. But anyway, my opponent just gets blown out of the game because Master Mage gets me a grandstanding +5. And now I'm in full control, just because next turn Junos is coming down, and when Junos comes down, he never gets back into the game. The game that I had wanted to share was really, really funny, just because my opponent had double turn 9 Albert and he couldn't win, just because I had Junos just blocking the Alberts from going face, and I would just keep killing them. I played a total of 4 I think 4 Taboos in that game, and the Taboos just completely soloed my opponent. It was so funny. Well, funny for me, probably not for my opponent. So he goes Maisie here, and yeah, like I control 8 cards. He controls like 3. He'll control a little bit more, but the Junos here is gonna be nice, because again, after Junos comes down, he never gets back into the game. I do evo the Guardian Golem. Now, there is merit to me choosing to not evo. However, it makes no real difference, just because I can do whatever I want right now, because he's more or less out of the game. I have too high of a health total and too many wards, because right now, if you count the HP of all of my wards, I effectively have 26 HP. I also have, again, a billion cards, so there's not much he can do about this. So I go ahead and evo, just because I want to make this first board harder for him to clear. He plays up 3rd Goblin Leader. I'm just like, wow. He then evos the Carrot, but again, the damage is already done. And here, I just go Taboos. The Taboos is going to just blow him out of the game. I do misplay by also playing the Levi, however, I wanted the Crimson Sorcery. Let me clarify though, I did not need the Crimson Sorcery, I just wanted it. And now he concedes. He needed to concede 3 turns earlier when he got blown back by Master Mage Levi, but sometimes people are very, very stubborn, especially when they play hard as fuck into AoE. So there wasn't really anything important about that game. It was mainly just that my opponent played very, very hard in AoE and did not have an actual game plan for what he wanted to do. He also did not smork me down as hard as he could / should have, and that was a mistake. Alright, so this game, again, versus Swordcraft. Same thing as last time. I have a 2, Levi has a 4. So all I have to do is just get a 3 and just see a 3 drop in my 3 draws, and I'll be fine. He plays turn 1 Goblin. That's kind of annoying, but I have double Red Hot Ritual, so that's whatever now. He passes turn 2, and here I just kind of like raise my eyebrow significantly, just because. Let's look at this. He only mulliganed 1 card away. So the question is, what exactly did he choose to keep? We already know he most likely kept the Goblin, so what exactly did he decide was absolutely worth keeping that he decided to make this play? Anyway, I developed the dwarf alchemist this way. He's in an awkward spot. Part of the reason why you may have seen me say in several previous videos that I don't like 1-drops is because of this scenario right here. You play out the 1-drop, you may be getting 1 damage, but if I have a creature, then suddenly, oh hey, look at that, I can now value trade into your 1-drop. If I have additional removal, then oh hey, look at that, you're just out of the game. But here he plays out Cinderella. That's fine. I have removal for the Cinderella. I do now however have to change game plans. I now have to go Red Hot Ritual to clear the Cinderella, just because she's too scary of a threat to leave up on the board. He can get it. He can get in 1 more damage with his Goblin, but that doesn't matter to me at all. Now here, alright, so there are many variations to Dirt as well. You can play Kaleidoscopic Glow, however my list does not. However, I wanted him to think that I did play Kaleidoscopic Glow, so I ordered my usage of the sigils this way, so that way he now has to worry about, oh, does my opponent have Kaleidoscopic Glow or not? Just because I don't want the Red Hot Ritual to be immediately consumed. Just that way I kind of give my opponent like false information possibly. I know that sounds reaching. However, there are little things like that they can do to kind of create mind games. I'll be talking about that in another video. So next turn, I'm most likely going to go Levi plus Evo, maybe Red Hot Ritual. Now, playing out the Red Hot Ritual will break my taboo of you never want to have more than 2 Earth Sigils in play, just because sometimes you can clutter your board with that, and it's very hard to unlock yourself from that if you do that. You temp his Artina here, that's fine, I don't care about that. I go ahead and I play Levi. Now, you might be wondering, why did you play Levi over playing Veteran Alchemist? Here, I like having the Crimson Source in my hand because even though I'll have like an awkward curve this turn, next turn if I want to, I can go Halo Golem Crimson Sorcery and blow up 3 targets at the same time. This is nice because this coincides perfectly with what he wants to do next turn, which is play Council of Card Knights. Right. The other important part is I do decide to use the Red Hot Ritual, just because if he does play Council of Card Knights, I want him to feel obligated to give me an Evo. The less Evos that he has for Albert, the more breathing room that I get. Although, granted, this is an unfavored matchup for him, I think, just because I've played this matchup so many times, and he most likely has not. He does give me the Evo. This is nice because, again, I can just blow up his board all at once. However, here, I decide to hold my Evo. I don't need to Evo, 1, because I'm not under any pressure. 2, if I do suddenly come under fire and I'm under pressure, I can go ahead and I always have the Veteran Alchemist for a heal. Just because right now I don't have anything in my hand I don't have anything else in my hand other than Professor and Veteran Alchemist that would consume sigils. So I really want to try to force him to use his last Evo here, just because if I have a 2 Evo advantage over him, unless he has Luminous Mage, he's going to be in an awkward spot. Here he plays a Alice. It buffs at least 2 cards that I know of, and maybe 2 to 3 more cards in his hand. So that's really good for him. However, he's most likely feeling very, very confident and choosing not to Evo. If he doesn't Evo, he can't play into Master Mage Levi. However, right now he is playing very, very hard, and he is playing very, very hard into Professor of Taboos. And one thing that I would like to mention here is that something that Sicily mentioned when I was playing versus him is that is that whenever you're playing me and I'm playing Dirt Rune, which like 9 out of 10 times if you see me playing Rune, I'm most likely playing Dirt. You can safely assume that I will have Professor. I'll magically have Professor in my hand on turn 6 each and every game. So the Professor here gives me insane value. I go ahead and I actually misplayed this turn. I needed to Evo my 2/2 zombie. Professor doesn't care how the creatures die. It just cares that they die. If I Evo my 2/2 zombie, I now will have a 4/1, a 4/1, and a 3/5, as well as a 2/2 when my Professor triggers during the end phase. You want to diversify your threats as much as possible, just because your opponent can't clear everything you do, especially not Swordcraft, who doesn't have any AoE at all. If I put everything onto one target, then suddenly it makes his job a lot easier for him to try to avoid taking damage. Additionally, versus Swordcraft, their best mid game card that they want to play on 6-7 mana is Tsubaki. Tsubaki can only target creatures with 5 or more HP. If I keep all of my creatures below 5, not 5 HP, 5 attack. If I keep all of my creatures below 5 attack, suddenly that Tsubaki, if he has it, is absolutely useless. However, I'm so used to not having a board when I play Taboos that I just kind of reflexively Evo the Taboos. Again, that's not correct for me to do that, and I should just Evo the zombie. I do get a zombie, but the zombie gets banished when my board is full. This is why I don't like playing Triple Sigil, just because it makes your board very, very cluttered, and usually you want to either try to have 1 at a time or 2 at a time, but generally when you have 2 at a time, you need to be careful about how you space them, just because you don't want to lose any additional value. So I do make a very, very massive board, and right now I have 11 damage on board. Sorry, not 11. I have 13 damage on board. If I hadn't overflooded my board with sigils, I would have had 15 damage on board. That's pretty good because 9 of that damage all came from the Professor, who now essentially gives me board control for the remainder of the game. There's not much he can do right now. The best thing he could do is to 1, have the Tina this turn, and then 2, have say fucking Alexander randomly next turn, or for example, or additionally, he could have had a 2-drop, and then had Cyclone Blade, but no one plays Cyclone Blade, no one. And here you're gonna see my opponent misplay very, very badly. He pinged my fucking Professor. He needed to ping my 4/1 and then trade into Professor, but you're gonna see him do something dumb and not trade into Professor. And right, Professor is a must-kill target. Among the soft taunts, There's some you can ignore. A Professor, you legitimately cannot ignore him unless you are winning the game, because he is going to blow up your board each and every time. And as a follower based class, if you don't have a board, how the fuck are you winning that game? So now just go ahead and trade. The good thing about Professor is that if he sticks, you essentially never run out of zombies, and you can essentially generate 1 billion shadows as a result, just because each time you trade a zombie into another 2/2, the Professor will make you another zombie. So you essentially get a +1, and it essentially turns your +0s into +1s, and yeah, it's just really good value. Additionally, I'm going to be able to blow up his Goblin Leader for free. I get another zombie, and then he disconnects, reconnects, and then concedes, because how does he win? Let's go ahead and review this game. In the span of 2 turns, Professor of Taboos made me 9 zombies, 8 zombies, something like that. But at the very least, he made me like 5 to 6 zombies, at least more. That's 12 in stats across 2 turns, and all because my opponent forgot to my opponent like brain farted and just did not clear my Professor. This is what I mean whenever I say, oh, Professor is God, because that was a lot of value. I know a lot of people are very, very salty about Ektar as a card, but honestly, Professor of Taboos is more or less the first coming of Ektar, just because yes, I would in fact compare Ektar to Professor in terms of power level, just because they're both just that good. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Go ahead and leave a like if you did. Go ahead and let me know what you guys think of Dirt.